Are live. This is the market update, perhaps the mother of all market updates. I am your host, Bill Noble. If you need a roadmap in crypto, subscribe to this channel. Turn on alerts right now because the month of October is going to be unbelievable. You're not going to want to miss a minute. And of course, you should feel free to hit the like button early and often. What are we talking about today? We're talking about 2023. We're talking about not if there's going to be the crash, what market is the crash going to be in, right? And what market is the crash going to spill over into? A surprising conclusion about crypto, perhaps. Perhaps. Also, GLDN returns. Emerging Asset Group, where I work, is coming out with a restructuring or a new token to replace GLDN. And all I can say is, as a group, we are going to do what we do best. We are going to do what we do best, and perhaps it's the most unique way to trade what is about to happen. So in a bit of serendipity, this new token, right, that's connected to our ability to understand markets comes out right as you would expect, right before the biggest move since 29 and 87. Don't believe me? No problem. You just stay right there, and I'm going to show you the charts, and I'm going to let you decide what to do. But there is a crypto mechanism to take advantage of this. Okay, I will own this token when it comes out as a disclaimer, and obviously I work there. However, I think you are going to find the new token, very intriguing, especially after I tell you what I'm about to tell you. T-Bone, you are not too late. You are not too early. You are right on time. Okay. Patriot said he sold everything. Okay. Louisiana is here. Welcome. John, Chris, SG, Alan, Andre, Jazz, the Crypto Clan, Richard Barry, Philip, Bull Runner, Glass of Beer 12, Justin. Happy to see us on Sunday night, trying to catch everybody. Okay. Sinister Klaus, Robin is going to bed in Europe, up late at night. Right. I've been radio silent all week in deep thought about what's going to happen here. Reverend Flashback from Germany, Katzman, Steve T. Welcome to the show. Aiken is here. Lot more crypto. Aiken. Okay, people, news. As usual, the world is focused on all the wrong stuff, but hey, that's okay. It's great stuff for us to talk about. Okay, is the U.S. jobs market slowing? It depends what kind of job you're trying to get, right? If you're trying to get a very high-end job, okay, you've got to be in the right social demographic if you're going to be in a corporate position. Okay, I think there's still an abundance of hiring going on, but a lot of it is people getting second jobs. So is there job growth? Yes. Is it the right job growth? Probably not. Okay. And there certainly isn't enough job growth to prevent looting like we saw in Philadelphia a couple of days ago, where they practically knocked the front door down on Lululemon and Foot Locker, with one person screaming on TikTok, "Everybody's got to eat." Just as a reminder on this front, which is something very important to keep in mind, there are planetary alignments, Gann style, that we have not seen since two prior events. The only time we've seen this is two other times: the American Revolution and the French Revolution. Okay. Everybody's got to eat. Whoever this person is, they could wind up famous. So, I mean, this is the Financial Times. They're not going to write about, everybody's got to eat and why everybody decided to run through the front door of Lululemon and just grab a bunch of stretchy pants and run out the door and think that was a great time. But obviously, those people can stay up all night doing that because they don't have to go to work in the morning. Social disorder. Ray Dalio has written about social disorder. Who's Ray Dalio? He's head of Bridgewater, one of the most famous, largest, profitable hedge funds ever. Their returns the last 3 years have been epic. Dalio has been psychic, both as a market prognosticator and he's just like a self-help guy with this huge book he has, Principles. Let me tell you something. Dalio has been publishing, the most recent publication is Cash is King. There's nothing wrong with cash. Not, the dollar's weak, buy stocks. The Fed's hyperinflating or hyperinflating. You better put it somewhere like a stock. No. Dalio is like GTFO. So, of course, the press is asking about the U.S. job market is slowing. Meanwhile, the real question is, should you be short America as a republic? Is a breakdown in law and order planned? These are the questions you have to start asking yourself. You don't want to, but if you're a crypto person, you definitely do. Because when I show you the Bitcoin and Ethereum charts, I'm going to show you something very hopeful. I actually do see real signs that Satoshi's vision can come true. Yes, if markets go down, everything can go with it, including crypto. Did you really tune in on a Sunday night to hear that? You don't need to hear that. You know that. But if everybody is afraid of that, it'll be really interesting to see what happens if crypto does not go down when legacy cracks. I have long-term charts, by the way, as we're doing this. I will tell you, don't let me forget to tell you the story of me and long-term charts. Okay, the United States. So we're ungovernable, and the U.S. accuses China of launching a global information war. People, the Chinese have a 50-year plan. I think they've been at war with us since the 70s, or if not earlier. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, communists, they fight. They fight. Right? They fight the truth. They fight their own people. And they fight anybody who doesn't think the way they do. Don't believe me? Read a book. So I know the FT guys have to write something, but as old news, boys, old news. A power grab against private equity threatens the U.S. economy. Somebody is using a radical antitrust theory to choke off much needed investment. Unfortunately, let me get this. Unfortunately, the Biden administration's regulatory agenda. The truth is that the buy and build model for some private equity firms is now under question. So, can I ask a question? Do we live in a free country? Is this a free country? Just want to ask. Like, does anybody in Washington represent the people at all? I mean, the deep state is not deep anymore. The deep state is just out there, right there going, hey, here's how we want things to go, right? We don't want law and order. We don't want investment. We want to put our political opponents through the ringer. We want to fight with each other. We want to kick out the Speaker of the House. And it's just both sides. Is the United States of America ungovernable? Now, I've been talking about this all year, and it's okay if you haven't listened because you got to listen right now. As a matter of fact, from my book here, you got about 10 days. You got about 10 days for this to sink in. OpenAI raising $1 billion. So there isn't enough money for Silicon Valley to develop the next, robot that can act as your therapist. Okay. So I understand that. I saw this on Twitter because I've seen blackboards before where computer programmers would, they, like an agile team, as they call them, would write kind of a pathway using a method called Scrum. They'd write out how they want to build the software. Supposedly somebody took an iPad, showed the diagram to ChatGPT of what software they were going to build, told it what language to write, and ChatGPT wrote the code from the blackboard. Wow. So, these guys are spending any amount of money, and it's almost like something out of a science fiction book, because, every day it's great to write an article, and we actually have one of, oh, who's behind on AI? Oh my God, I'm behind. I need to spend another $1 billion on Skynet. And I'm watching this and I'm like, I mean, I think when I look at this, I'm like, could AI benefit QQQ and destroy the Dow Jones Industrial Average? In other words, AI fixes everything or just some things? It definitely isn't going to help the job market. So when I see these guys in t-shirts going, oh, well, I have to spend billions on this, I'm like, well, cheery. Amazon tech arms race. I haven't spent enough to build a giant computer. Russia and North Korea. So let's talk about these characters for a minute, right? The United States' idea of passing a budget resolution, which I don't think we've seen in years. We just do this like kick the can down the road thing. Am I to understand this correctly that, we were sending money and weapons over there, which, is not effective against the Russian army, but we were doing something. If we wanted to fight the Russians, we just should have fought the Russians a year and a half ago, right? When we had the moral imperative. Okay, now we're just writing checks over there to send stuff to the front that the Russians just blow up with their missile and artillery capability. But if you're Putin, right, and you watch this circus, right, where we basically show the world that we're ungovernable, right? So we have to pass a budget deal that can't include any funding for Ukraine, although there may have been a side deal. And then the party on the right is going to oust the Speaker of the House over getting a deal done. So if you do a deal in Washington where anyone cooperates, you're fired. I'm not defending whatever this guy at all. I'm just saying, if you do a deal in Washington where people agree, you're fired. Meanwhile, Putin sees we've lost our will. This is exactly what happened in Afghanistan, right? All our troops came out and the whole thing was done by, don't mess around or we'll blow you up. And when that guy was gone, we lost our will. I used to know this nurse. She was an army medic. And she said, what happens in war with us, the United States, is we lose our will. We fight, we get all pumped up, and then we say, we don't want to play anymore. So if you're one of these characters, I mean, it's like bad and worse. The real axis of evil. What are these people going to do come Monday morning? Putin uses? He's got a Bloomberg on his desk. I mean, we just showed laughably massive weakness. Laughably massive. And people, you got to pay attention to this, because if I was this guy, I'd be pressing the advantage on Monday. And if I know that there's parallels between 1929 and 1987, so does he. And there's a solar eclipse on the 18th. I mean, I ain't sleeping at night. But these characters are emboldened now. They are emboldened. I mean, we have publicly lost our will for whatever reason. So there's a certain vulnerability here. Meanwhile, back at the regulatory ranch, Regulators turn up the heat on shadow banks. Let me tell you something, folks. You shouldn't be worried about shadow banks. You should be worried about shadow hedge funds. What's a shadow hedge fund? Every G7 central bank. Did you know public statistics show that there are no equities holdings on the books of the Federal Reserve? So we're to think that S&P futures mooned during the QE period for 10 years, and the Fed never bought one single S&P future. Not one. That the central, I mean, we know the Bank of Japan is sitting on trillions in equities. But could something transpire here that affects small banks, credit card companies? We've talked about this in our EAG Twitter spaces. Could something happen to the central banks? And what does that mean for Bitcoin? I think you know. Okay, so Ukraine is ready to load 5 grain ships. This might be connected to the fact that there was a rumor yesterday that England is sending troops to Ukraine. Not they're sending troops to Poland, they're sending troops to Ukraine. And Putin is drafting another 100,000 people. For what? He's got a 1 million-man army now. For what? What's he doing with it? What's he going to do with it? I love this. U.S. hedge fund provides record loan for environmental lawsuits. Okay, so I guess if you pollute a river, your legal team can be funded by a hedge fund who will take part of the settlement. This is idea of innovation in the United States. Now, yes, if you hurt people or you pollute rivers, okay, you should obviously stay with EAG, which will be launching a pure water token versus ETH. All right, coming soon. However, lawyers divide up wealth somebody else creates. And if this is our idea of innovation, I don't know. This is our idea of venture capital. Hardliners vote to move to oust the Speaker of the House. Again, if you cooperate, you are out. You can comply, okay. If you do what we say, we won't throw you in jail. But if you cooperate, you're out. Okay, here's the lawmakers passing the bill to avoid the shutdown. Oh, it only goes out until mid-November. Wow, that's credible. Congress averts shutdown hours before deadline. Child care staffing cuts, closures are coming as funding cliff approaches. A crucial source of emergency funding for U.S. child care providers is running out. This is the United States of America. UK energy bills are increasing for the poorest households. IRS contractor charged with leaking tax data on billionaires. The deep state is not deep. And the little guy is getting angry. Like, that's for sure. Not just the guys that are taking out Lululemon and Foot Locker in Philly, but like the everyday person is starting to figure this out. Once unthinkable bond yields, now the new normal for markets. Larry Fink sees embedded inflation pushing the U.S. 10-year to 5%. Larry, I got a great idea. How about 7 or 8? You're going to want to see the charts. Now, of course, we here in crypto, we love crypto, but of course, the crypto media is focused on all the wrong things. This includes some of the smartest people I know who are like, oh, let's talk about the micro range in Bitcoin. Not doing that. Crypto firms. Oh, I see. They're hiring regulatory people. Compliance. Isn't this great? Innovation at work. Want to save the planet? Mine Bitcoin. Okay. Turns out Bitcoin may wind up taking advantage of the Earth's heat. What's good is bad. The beautiful thing about this Bitcoin mining story is that the Bitcoin miners used free market feedback and free market motivation to bend that network and the mining process. Because believe me, people, in 10 days, we're going to need it. Like crypto or not, central banks need to prepare. Okay, the jury is out on crypto, but tokenization could be revolutionary, says the Bank of International Settlements. Right, tokenization will be revolutionary because people are going to need liquidity. Liquidity is something everybody takes for granted, and in 10 days, that may not be the case. Also, you are going to have to see a central bank at some point putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet along with BlackRock. Oh, let's see. What do we got here? S&P. SEC continues filing frenzy to delay the Bitcoin ETFs. People, all this, and I have said this, they're going to delay it. They're going to delay it. They're going to delay it. And this is going to blow up in their face because the more they delay it, the higher it's going to go when they actually approve it. All these big financial firms know what I'm about to tell you. Oh, okay. And of course, again, crypto media. Judge denies temporary release for SBF. Sentence could be very long. FTX customers will testify against SBF. Bankruptcy court, Three Arrows Capital, apprehended in Singapore. Millions in Ether tied to FTX hacker. People, we're talking about yesterday's news, regulatory minutia, instead of the real purpose and meaning of crypto. Bitcoin gets that, and we at Emerging Asset Group, we are working hard to get that and bring that product to you, which comes out tomorrow. Okay, let's go to PowerPoint. Cat D is here. Welcome. Okay, now, if there was ever, I can't speak. Some people like different things on the market update. This has got to be one of the most powerful PowerPoints I've ever done, in my opinion. Okay, GLDN. Okay, so this was our original token, right? Basically a connection to a commodities universe and including water. Okay, got bit by the bear market, relaunching tomorrow as the EAG token, which I will explain in a minute. The good news is it looks like people really want the GLDN token because it will allow them tomorrow to swap using a dApp and get the new EAG token, which again, I own this and I will get the EAG token and I work there. But GLDN has a pulse. Everybody gave up. Everybody gave up. And now we're coming back with a separate water token and a separate token, EAG, which I basically call the market expertise token, or very simply put, we're just going to do what we do best. Okay, so EAG has two components to it, all right? It has a trading fund. It has sort of a investment venture capital arm and an incubator. Okay. Basically, 4 traders are going to work with capital in stocks, bonds, and currencies. So this is like me as research, Seth, our head trader, and 4 other guys are going to be working and trading. And any money that they make, the money that they make helps go back to obviously to pay the team, but more importantly, to buy the token, to consume the token. So if you think that we could be on the precipice of some of the biggest moves ever, which could be in currencies, which could include crypto, Or you could have epic moves in stocks and bonds. Then perhaps taking a look at a token that's tied to people with a trading track record might make sense. EAG Labs, that's the investment arm where you get ideas from the team, ideas from the token holders, and it's essentially like an entrepreneur class where the best ideas get funded. Okay, returns going back to the top 50 holders. So again, we're going to do what we do best. Part of the launch pad, the third part is we are still looking at launching commodity tokens from this EAG platform. But the most important thing to me is that we're going to do what we do best. There's acting as a community. There's thinking about getting commodities on the blockchain. There's getting commodities on the blockchain, But most importantly, there's getting this market right. Okay. GLDN trading will stop October 2nd at noon Eastern. There will be a migration DApp. You will go to a DApp. You will switch out your GLDN tokens for EAG at 8 p.m. Eastern. 1 to 2 hours after the migration, liquidity will be added and EAG will start trading. Total supply, 12 million. Getting inside the EAG Telegram group is free. It's free. So in the custom work I do for them is also available inside their trading school. So there's only a 3% tax going back and forth. So that's way lower than before. Noon for GLDN, 8 p.m. for the DApp, and 2 hours after that, it starts trading. Now, what move are these guys going to get on? Because that's really the question, right? Now, if we were launching a token when we're sitting in, like, I remember back in 2014, we're like in a range and we're like falling asleep, it's less exciting. But when you start to look at these quarterly charts and you start to think about the amount of pressure in the system, I got this from like the smartest person that I know. So one of the things that you might have to consider is there's pressure in the system. Now, if stocks have been manipulated, if bonds, even though they're going to crash, can be held up by the central banks, perhaps the mother of all moves occurs in the foreign exchange market. Now, this is the dollar index. This goes back to 1989, right here. Back 2001, 2002, we had the Fed doing a tightening spree, right, to try to stop NASDAQ. And then the dollar collapsed, right? The dollar was never able to spend a lot of time above 106 in the modern era. I started in the market in August of 1990. So since I've been in the market, the dollar index has not been able to sustain itself above 106. Yes, this is a monthly chart. Yes, it was up a quarterly chart, So this is a period of years. So I can't say it never sustained itself above 106. But does the dollar index belong above 106 after that whole news thing that I went through? Do you want to own the US dollar as an asset? Is the US dollar an asset? Yes. If you're in China and you're afraid of a real estate debacle, well, okay, then maybe the dollar is more appealing to you than whatever you have over there. But what's going on over here is such a circus, and our bond market is in so much trouble. The idea of a dollar top has to be on your mind. In other words, based on theory, do I have to tell you that if the entire world blows up, people buy the dollar? Yeah, I don't have to tell you that, because that's kind of what happens, right? That's why the dollar did this reversal last week. Everyone was like, oh my God, buy the dollar. Okay, but do you want to pay 106 for the dollar, knowing that the dollar has not been able to sustain itself above that level? So I kind of had to back off the I hate the dollar thing, and I'm just going right back to I hate the dollar. The only reason the dollar is going up is if you have an ECB or Bank of Japan meltdown. Now, here's the flip side of the coin. This white line is the 21-quarter moving average. So it's been riding this moving average. So 99 is support, 106 is resistance. It actually traveled almost the whole range during the last quarter. Could the dollar go up? Yes. Let me tell you something. If the dollar goes up, that will be bad for Bitcoin, but that will also be bad for everything else. Because if people actually want to buy the dollar, then all these risk assets, stocks, all this stuff, bonds, treasuries, all in trouble. This is damned if you do, damned if you don't. Now let's talk about the 10-year. Okay. Yields up, bonds down. So bonds have been down, down, down as rates have gone up, up, up. Why are rates going up? Well, there's inflation. You've heard about it. And everyone's all wound up about the Federal Reserve raising rates, but they're done with that. Why? Because they can't stop inflation by raising short-term interest rates. The only way to stop inflation is to have long-term interest rates rise. Now, does the Fed control long-term interest rates? No, they don't. The market does. Now, what determines long-term rates? Well, long-term bonds do. And what moves long-term bonds? Inflation and the credibility of the government that issued them. It's that simple. Just like the dollar, it can be that simple. Oh, the consumer production, the job market is slow. Please. Credibility of the issuer. What is the credibility of the issuer of U.S. 10-year notes? And why, in the name of God, would you accept a 4.5% yield for 10 years when you can get 5% equivalent for like 3 months? Why? You wouldn't. You wouldn't. The bond market is expecting some sort of recession when really the recession doesn't come until the 10-year goes to 543, which is a target I have here from a monthly chart, or higher. You don't get a recession until you take down bonds and equities. And everyone's like, wow, 5% interest rates are here to stay. It's the new normal. No, bro. Those numbers are much higher. Now, this is a huge wild card for crypto. But again, the more I look at this, I mean, look at this. This is a quarterly chart of the U.S. 10-year note yield going back to the 30s. The white line is the 100-quarter moving average. Do you realize that what's going on here is the same thing that went on in 1958, where you had interest rates go up, break through this moving average, come back down and test them, and then eventually never saw that moving average again? Never saw it again. Now, it ranged for 10 years, okay, but you never saw the moving average again. So are you ever going to see a 3.5% 10-year note again? No, you're not. Okay, yeah, I guess stock market goes to zero, maybe. But this is telling you that there's a fundamental shift going on in treasuries. So everyone's like, hey, TLT went down. I had a great little short position. I made some money. Cool. Bond trade's over, right? Wrong. TLT quarterly. TLT is an instrument inside the government bond market. Okay. I'm sorry. It's inside the stock market that helps you track bonds. So if you don't understand bonds, you don't understand interest rates, you don't understand futures, don't worry about it. You have TLT. TLT up, bonds doing good. TLT down, bonds doing bad. It's a stock. It's not a stock, it's an ETF, but you can trade it like a stock. So in DeMark work, okay, these little numbers are, they're from a system called sequential. Each little number is like, the low is lower than the low 4 bars ago, something like that. Okay. And normally when you have a 9, you see how the 9's fat, you can have, a bottom if you're inside of a range, or you can have a pause. You can have a pause. You can have a counter trend rally. So you're going down 9, you have a bounce. And if you have a failed rally, then you get probably 13 more down bars. Can you imagine 13 down quarters in TLT? I mean, do you really think it's going to take 13 quarters to price all this in? And that's where this comes in, people. That's where this comes in. This is the book about the 29 crash. Risk assets have to be repriced. And guess what? Treasuries are now risk assets. It is not going to take 13 quarters for the market to go, inflation is not under control. The Fed doesn't know what to do. Central banks have trillions in losses in bonds on their balance sheet. And our government doesn't have any credibility, and our country may actually be ungovernable. Why do you think Ray Dalio is telling you about cash? Now, this is ZB. This is a long bond futures contract. So this is like, TLT is something that they made for people who do stocks. ZB is for futures people. ZB was at 120 in August. It's now at 114. One chart I have is going to 106. Everyone's like, wow, that's unbelievable. 106. Holy cow. Okay, I got a better idea. How about 97? Okay, these things come from hidden pivot analysis. So hidden pivots are a way of you take a down move, you take the correction, and then you can draw these structures using fib math to help you get these support and resistance levels that people can't normally see. Well, here's long bond futures monthly going all the way back to COVID. Now, 116.13 was a big level in ZB. As you can see over here with this red candle, okay, that level got broken. Then let's just do it simply. Where's the next level? 97. 97. What happens if the Pluto return for the United States, the solar and lunar cycles that are similar to 29 and 87, from something called the spiral calendar? What happens if the event and the panic is in the bond market and the currency market of the United States? And if it's not in the bond market, what happens if it's in the currency market? What happens if everyone else out there in the world starts to view the dollar and our bond market? What happens if our bond market goes down so much, it affects the credibility of the dollar? This chart says that could happen. So this is something that's worth reading because it puts it all in English. Right now, short-term interest rates are 5.5%, but long-term government bonds, as I told you, yield much less than that. Right now, the relationship between short-term rates and long-term rates, that's called the yield curve. Right? If the yield curve were to normalize to where it was prior to 2008, 6-month treasury bills would still yield 5%. But 10-year bonds could yield up to 7%, and the long bond could be as high as 7.5%. That's 97 in ZB. That's 13 down quarters in TLT. And again, it won't take 13 quarters. So here, this guy who's anti-Bitcoin is explaining this in English. That we're in the middle of a bond market crash in the United States. Now, here's the great news. At EAG, we've been talking about this now for about 9 months. And then this EAG token allows us to put our money where our mouth is, right? And let the token holders benefit. And then when it's over, the investment side, the commodity token side will kick in. But this is epic. And don't take my word for it. Listen to what this guy has to say. He did the math. If you have a 7% 10-year note, what does the world look like? Is that crazy? I don't think it is. Okay, now let's talk about crypto. So normally when interest rates go up, it's bad for crypto. Right? Last year was a good example. And if there is a crash, in bonds and a rally in the dollar, that will be bad for crypto. But what if the what if the decline in bonds creates a decline in the dollar? Like, what happens if this gets so bad, you start questioning central banks? You start looking at the losses on the books of central banks. How do central banks get more capital when they lose money? Like Silicon Valley Bank, or like when all these banks got rescued in 2008 by the Fed. Who rescues the Fed and the ECB? Now, they can create their own credit by doing QE. I understand that. But it's not about their solvency. It's about their credibility. And if they have trillions upon trillions of losses, this creates a psychological effect. Now, MicroStrategy. So really weird stuff going on here. Diamond bottom, one of the most bullish formations you can have. MicroStrategy breaks out. Michael Saylor announces how much Bitcoin he has, which you would think would make the stock go to the moon. Instead, they hit the stock back into the diamond over here, which is really not supposed to happen. Okay, diamonds are supposed to be breakout, come back, and go. Now, where this is interesting is that we are approaching the apex of the diamond. So normally diagonal formations, triangles, and such don't matter in crypto. They don't really work that well. Diamonds work really good, but let me tell you an instructional tidbit about what happens when a market gets to the apex of a triangle. You get one of two outcomes. The market either sits there and invalidates the triangle and sends the technical analyst back to the drawing board, or you get a massively explosive move. Massively. Like when you get to an apex of a triangle, especially something that's this big, because this diamond took 2 years to make. So when they get to this diamond, when they get closer to this apex, MicroStrategy is going to have a $100 move. Now, if the dollar goes up, it'll be $100 down. If the dollar goes down, it'll be $300 up or $200 up to the diamond target at 556. The fate of the world hinges on MicroStrategy. I will use the doctrine of called fade yourself. I looked at this thing go down last week and I was like, oh my God, crypto is going to blow up and go to zero. I was like, the crash at 29 is going to include Bitcoin. Because I mean, this candle here was Bill going, wah, oh my God. Just in case you think it only happens to you. It doesn't. And I'm looking at this going, oh my God. But then I started to pull these long-term charts up. Okay. He's got 5,455 Bitcoin. He got that recently. Okay. And he currently holds 158,000 Bitcoin. And if you want to get your hands on 158,000 Bitcoin, BlackRock, Jerome Powell, Elon Musk, you're going to have to buy MicroStrategy. You're going to have to buy the company, which is why this stock could go up. This stock could go up for two reasons. One, because they own Bitcoin. Two, because if you got to get your hands on 158,000 Bitcoin, good luck buying that in the open market. Mike had to buy this over a period of years, and he's got quite a loss on some of his Bitcoin because he was buying it at like 47K, thinking it's going to 250. What happens if you wake up and bonds crash and Bitcoin doesn't go down? If Bitcoin doesn't go down when it's supposed to go down, then you could turn around and Bitcoin could be much higher. So what my boss said, I was like, all right, let me go look at this. I cried like a baby with MicroStrategy, but it didn't break. I mean, they got everybody out. They got me out. I was like, I can't do this. It's going to zero. Okay, now let's talk about how a 1929 event would start. Let's go into like the mechanics. So from the book talks about an event in late September 20th, which was right around when Jerome Powell came out and said, we don't know what to do about inflation. People haven't figured out what that means yet. And as far as I'm concerned, there was a geopolitical event yesterday when we effectively gave up on Ukraine, even if there was a side deal. Now, the next thing in the Crash of 29 book by John Kenneth Galbraith, called The Great Crash of 29, mentions something that happened on October 11th. It was a small incident, as all these things are. All these things that start major events are small. In this case, a public utilities company was not allowed to do a stock split because that's what everyone was doing back then. You know, the stock would go up, the speculators would bid it up, they would split the stock, it would look cheap to everybody, and they would just run it up. So on October 11th, okay, I'm looking for parallel dates. The 8th was a big day in 87. The 11th was a big day in 29. The 10th to the 11th was also that was also the date of the major top in 2007, and March 9th was the bottom in 2009. So there's something about that 9th to the 11th period, which means you got time to get positioned in markets. You got time to get yourself into the EAG token if you want to like make a bet. Okay, not investment advice that our traders can get on this move. They're going to get on this move. Here's a hint, folks. They're already on it. Okay, now how does it happen? Okay, how do you break the stock market? The smartest person I know told me this. So the way the stock market breaks is you look at VIX. VIX is the index of fear. Okay, the Fed can use VIX to manipulate the stock market, but it's an index of fear using the derivatives market. Now, if VIX goes above the hidden pivot target at 22.8, okay, so here there's no fear. Everything's fine. Nothing's ever going to happen in our lifetime. All of a sudden, boom, right? Just like 29 and 87, everybody woke up in September. If VIX goes above 22.8, here's what happens. Most portfolio managers hedge their portfolio by buying options that expire that same day. What does that mean? Well, that means the stock market is not volatile enough to scare anybody about hedging, about buying puts or the things that, go into the VIX formula. In other words, the stock market may go down, people may get worried, but no one has freaked out enough to actually change how people manage their books, how they hedge. Now, what happens if stocks go down like, say, 5% in one day? Which, if you look at what's going on in the bond market, how is that not going to happen? How are you not going to walk in one day and have the bond market just come unglued? And what happens if stocks really break, like in one day? You have a 5% move that scares everybody. Well, what's going to happen is big players, okay, who use like little convenient, cute hedging strategies are going to have to go in and behave in such a way where they're like, oh my God, it really is 29 or 87. And you're going to have VIX at 40 because they're going to have to buy different forms of hedges. So what's my point? VIX above 22.8 is your indication that something may be changing because that's a hidden pivot target. Technically, the stock market fear should stop at 22.8. If it doesn't, something has broken. Something has broken. Now, if something doesn't break in stocks, that's okay. So we can talk about 29, we can talk about 87, talk about pressure in the system, but there's always a twist. History repeats, but it's never the same thing twice. So what happens if stocks don't break? Well, bonds most certainly will. Bonds most certainly will, right? If everyone hides in stocks and stocks don't go down, bonds are toast. And so's the dollar. So's the dollar. Now, I could also submit to you that if equities don't crash, like if you don't get this 5% move in one day, right, that almost guarantees that the currency market becomes the place where all this October lunar eclipse, solar eclipse pressure gets released. Remember, back in April, Bitcoin went from 16 to 32 off the eclipse in April. So this could be the end of the world in legacy, which the long-term charts indicate, or it could be the beginning of a massive move in Bitcoin. Now, here's S&P charts, keeping this really simple. You had a 13 top in July, or right around when you got a spiral calendar signal. Okay, so this is right around the point where you had to start thinking about 29 and 87. And of course, as soon as you get that, they have to take it up, giving you a 13 and a 9 top on the S&P monthly chart. So if you want to know why they sold it in September, that's why. Because you got this 13 and 9 top going on. Just so in case you're wondering what this looks like, here's S&P. Oh, we'll take it down on a 13 top. Oh, we'll take it back up again because we just can't stop loving it. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. Sell the things where people think they're safe. If there's anything I can tell you about crashes that I've been in, that's the stuff that goes down the most, is the stuff where people think they're safe. That, and of course, the toxic asset. Now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, aka your grandpa's stocks, may not benefit from the AI revolution. And I've started looking at this. This is DIA, the Dow ETF. So these like 20 of your grandpa's stocks, you have a 13 top and you have kind of a miserable failure on a 4. Now, I guess if we come in on Monday and stocks are up, well, then you got 10 days before you got to worry about it. You come in on Monday and stocks are lower, okay, this could be one of the biggest failure patterns as it is, because you get a top, then it looks like the trend's going to restart, but like a little bit of the way in, it kind of fails. So if stocks are up, per the 29 book, you got 10 days. Okay. Stocks start failing on Monday, bonds start failing on Monday, dollar starts failing on Monday, you don't have 10 days. You don't. But, again, the way the books, the spiral calendar, the way all this kind of plays out, it's all a second half of October phenomenon starting on the 10th, which is why now the EAG token launch, this is something you got to start thinking about, particularly on 401ks. Now you start looking at quarterly charts. You have a 13 top in the Dow 2 quarters ago. So, of course, they had to buy it because they always buy it. Everything bad is good in equities. I don't know. And then you tried to rally it this quarter, and then they smacked it at the end. To me, that's just a major top, like a long-term top. Okay. They want to tell me that everything is okay in stocks. Well, it's not chart-wise, not from a DeMark point of view. But if stocks don't go down, well, it's okay, because they're going to have to release the pressure somewhere, and that could mean Bitcoin up. And no one's talking about this. Like I'm not going to lie, my boss came up with this idea. He's like, Bill, if any of these bond market targets that I'm talking about wind up being right, Bitcoin's going to be at 50K. You're going to have like deterioration in the system. I'm like, wow, that's pretty. Who's expecting that? Emerging asset group. That's what's expecting. Okay. And if we're wrong about crypto, we're probably going to wind up being right about stocks, bonds, or both. My God, look at this hidden pivot structure, right? I started from a low in 2012, right? I took it all the way up to the pre-COVID high. And this hidden pivot structure gave you the top last year, the monthly chart. They banged on this for 3 months. This is the Dow. They banged on this level for 3 months, couldn't get through it. You had this huge down move last year. And guess what? They came all the way back again for more. Why? I don't know. I guess artificial intelligence is going to help, 3M make better sticky pads. I don't know. What are these guys doing? This is a double top. Get out. Look at these Williams oscillators. So Bill Williams, a famous quant guy, he made this oscillator so you don't have to worry about, should I use this or that oscillator, RSI, stochastics. I like this because when it gets close to zero, you get really big moves. Really big moves in Dow Industrials. Again, personally, this is me. Personally, as soon as I'm done Tuesday morning, right, I am looking for puts in DIA. And I got a couple single names I'm going to pick on, but I'm not going to talk about that. Okay. We talk about that EAG Twitter Spaces, EAG Trading Group. So you want to come check all that out. Now, for our friends in Europe who will be watching this tomorrow, or bless their hearts if they stayed up all night, look at DAX, right? So there's a recession going on in Germany, which of course is a great reason to buy equities. You have a new high in DAX and you have a lower high in the RSI, a long-term RSI with this rolling over. This is a monthly chart. And these blue bars, they frequently occur near tops and bottoms. I have no idea how they're going to keep this thing up there. Now, I guess a stock in a German company is better than holding a euro or a European or a euro-based government bond. So if you can get away from anything connected to the ECB, I guess that's a good idea. But how long does that last? And if you're safe in German stocks, are you? Are you? Oh, don't worry, I'm in this, I'm safe. Are you? Are you? Oh, I'm not in Bitcoin because legacy is going to go down and I don't want to get washed out to 10K. Okay. I said the same thing. So people think they're safe in German equities and not safe in Bitcoin. Is that true? Nikkei, Japan. So Bank of Japan likes to print money. We know this. Okay. Nikkei exploded to a hidden pivot top. And if you look closely over here, back in 1989, when like literally people thought Japan was going to like take over the world, like this rally in Nikkei was so powerful. They came out with a cereal that you could buy in Japan that actually had gold flakes. Okay. For people who made money in the stock market, you could eat cereal with gold. I remembered that because I started in the market in 1990. I would take courses in college, like Japan's going to take over the world. Everybody's taking Japanese. And of course, right, the blow off top started from this level that we're at right now. It went up, it cracked it, they upticked it to this level, and then it collapsed. Oh, look, we're at the same level. So a blow off top started from this level, a collapse started from this level. Oh, look, we're back at the level. Oh, look, it's a hidden pivot top. Oh, look, the Bank of Japan. Put in the chat GBT if you can. It won't give it to me. I had to go to another computer because it knows what I'm up to. Find out what kind of equity holdings, like the Swiss National Bank, the Bank of Japan. Yeah, they're holding government bonds and stocks. And what happens when the P&L on central bank balance sheets deteriorates? Well, I guess you have one of two things, right? Everybody goes, oh my God, I have to buy the dollar because the Bank of Japan and ECB have bigger problems. Okay. But what happens if everybody goes, you know what, this whole legacy system, I'm out. I'm done. Remember those news articles? Heating bills going up. You know, the little guy is getting destroyed. Let me ask you something. When they looted the stores in Philadelphia, can you imagine being the people that worked at the stores? So you probably don't have a job anymore and you're scared out of your mind. Is anyone thinking about the little guy? No. But we got the Japanese stock index back where we're eating gold flakes in the cereal. Right? This is why Satoshi Nakamoto could have been a part of the Japanese intelligence service, waiting for the moment where the shenanigans, that the things that they do and the things that we do all come back to haunt them and benefit us. Okay, MicroStrategy we talked about. Now back to Bitcoin. So here we are. Okay, I'm sitting here with my legacy charts. We're all scared to death, right? Everybody knows it. A lot of people have the stock market short on, which is why that might not be the trade. It may be a currency trade, according to the smartest person I know. But here we have Bitcoin. We have the death cross. Oh my God. The 50-day moving average is going to cross the 200-day moving average and the world is going to end. Maybe if the dollar goes up, I guess you don't need me to tell you that, but what if it doesn't? Like, what if I'm looking at this and it's bearish and I go, oh, I'm going to be bearish at the moment where Satoshi's vision comes true. Now, of course, the equities go down. We just know what can happen to Bitcoin. Nobody is looking at charts. My boss kind of has like an intuitive trader instinct along with his team, right? That drives the EAG token that comes out tomorrow. Okay. What if everybody who's looking at charts is looking at the charts the wrong way? Like, what happens if Bitcoin somehow gets above the 50 and 200-day moving average and does what I would call a bird on a wire getting ready to fly? So on CoinDesk, you're reading articles, oh my God, it's the death cross, because, a reporter looks at a bunch of moving averages, calls a bunch of people, gets some quotes. The next thing you know, you have a great piece for the newspaper, which you should never trade off of. Now, let's do something crazy. Let's look at a logarithmic chart, because we're on a monthly, quarterly chart kick tonight. Let's look at a monthly chart of Bitcoin, log scale, using moving average from a now deceased former colleague who used to do charts in the currency market. I did the charts in the equity market. He did the charts in currencies and commodities. He liked to use a 55-day moving average for whatever reason instead of the 50. So I threw up a log chart of Bitcoin. I threw a 55-day moving average on it. So 55-month moving average. Wouldn't you know, Bitcoin touched that moving average last month and has practically been sitting on it for 2 or 3 months. Wow. So they went through it for COVID and came back strong. They went through it in 2019 and came back strong. If you look at this theory that my boss had that I'm now putting charts to is frankly not ridiculous, because this is the definition of a bird on a wire getting ready to fly, because the bird has been sitting on the wire for 7 months. So the wire is the moving average. The bird sits on a wire and just takes off. Ask yourself this question. What YouTube influencer, what market commentator is talking about a combination of a 1929 event, so this huge, huge event, but as the smartest person in the world told me, may have to be reflected in the foreign exchange markets. It should happen in equities. It's probably going to happen in bonds. But what happens? And if you've watched the whole stream, I hope you have, because this is the bottom line. What happens if this 29 crash is about the credibility of governments, particularly ours? What happens if that's the crash? Is that going to affect bonds? Oh, yeah. Is that going to affect stocks? Probably. But isn't it going to affect the integrity of the currency? And everybody goes, I've been talking to people this weekend. Like, yeah, I don't have Bitcoin. I don't understand it. It's funny money. It's crap. And I said to somebody, can you imagine a world where you actually needed it? Same thing with ETH, by the way. Same thing with ETH. Look at ETH sitting on that 55-month moving average, just like it did in April of 2020. Get that little candle where it goes down and then pops back. Sam Bankman-Fried, everyone's like, oh my God, let's talk about how long SBF is going to go to jail. No, actually, let's talk about how many months Sam Bankman-Fried gave you to buy ETH below the 55-day moving average. Everyone's like, oh, well, you got to buy AI and you got to buy all this stuff. Okay, maybe. Okay, but maybe it's priced for perfection in the short term. And nobody is talking about decentralized money. Nobody. Well, except for guys who are getting banned off YouTube, right? Some of these commentators, they say the wrong thing, they're out. One of the things I thought of the other day, if you want to hear something personal, Ben Armstrong added more followers in one day than I have in total over a year. Now, I first looked at this and I said, I must be doing something wrong. Obviously, there's something wrong. And then I said to myself, well, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm doing something right. Maybe I'm like a miniature version of all these guys that got kicked off YouTube because I'm talking about human freedom through crypto. So did you need to watch an hour show to know that crypto can sometimes go down a lot? Not really. But if you look at this ETH chart, didn't we just go through that already? Didn't we just go through it? I mean, isn't it a time to be like hopeful with a stop? Because again, come the 10th, if they don't do it in equities, the pressure in the system is going to get relieved somehow, right? Somebody is going to go, F this, it doesn't work for me. My heating bill, the Foot Locker in Philadelphia, this stuff is going to get traded. The budget deal, it's going to get traded. How do you trade it? Well, I work for Emerging Asset Group, so that's one idea, right? That comes out tomorrow, by the way. Okay, and there's also this Bitcoin and ETH, right? There's also like long with a stop. So, I mean, EAG puts it in our traders' hands because these guys know risk reward because I think they were trained by our head trader, or at least they had to go to trading school supervised by our head trader because we're doing what we do best. But what about like the decentralized money thing? And that is the market update. Okay, so that was a huge chart lecture. Let's see what we got going on here in the comments section. See what we got going on. Okay. Patriot Caveman says we've been in a recession for a year. No joke. The common man is suffering. Megan makes the stream. Okay. Megan says, I always want and need more Bitcoin. Okay. But serious gains will be elsewhere. Okay. This is the other thing that people are not talking about, which I didn't go through in the charts, right? That, you know, there are altcoins that are actually doing well. You know, for all this talk, this is another like wake-up call for somebody like me, right? Like, again, absolutely not investment advice, but like, this is something we heard about inside the EAG group. This is JVL. It's a gaming token. Okay. It went up. It retraced 62% of the move. Kind of like textbook, right? It held 62% and then went straight up. Now, is this a blow off top? Maybe. This is an altcoin rally, a micro cap altcoin rally in the shadow of the repeat of this. Somebody out there still believes in crypto. This is not investment advice. I know people are huge believers in it. I do not own it. That's not the point. The point is, yes, as Kramer says, there's always a bull market somewhere. This thing has gone up a lot. Do your own research. But the point is, there's some evidence out there. I saw one of the guys I respect on Twitter talking about, hey, Arbitrum might rally and flip support and resistance. I was like, that's interesting, right? And Crypto Crazy says things have been moving behind the scenes. Okay. Chris says if we have a 1929 event, crypto will dump too. Okay. Yes. Right. If equities go down 40%, if the 10-year note goes to 7%, nothing survives that. I got it. But what happens if the event doesn't, it's as big as 87 or 29, but it doesn't look the same? That's what I'm driving at. Now, if it does look the same, well, our EAG token, our traders will be on top of it, right? I'm the analyst. I write reports. I do TV. They do trading, right? You know, I have a flushed face and, you know, I'm yelling and screaming and they got ice water running through their veins because that's what you have to do to be a good trader. So whatever's going to happen, personally, I believe our guys will be on it, right? I did research for traders at Goldman. That was my job. I worked for the sales desk and they gave, you know, research to hedge fund traders and our traders inside. So I think I know something about how to work with traders and whether or not traders are any good or not, frankly. Right. And if you've listened to our Twitter spaces, which are kind of like this niche boutique research kind of group market update, you'd know this. So yes, crypto could dump. And if it all goes, it all goes. But it's something different could happen, and it could be in the currency market. So it could be a dollar crash and a Bitcoin melt up. Or it could be a euro or yen crash and a dollar melt up with a Bitcoin decline. I don't know. I haven't got it exactly, right? But, honestly, as an analyst, you can think of all the scenarios you want. You can know it's coming. It'll still shock you. It'll still shock you. Francisco is here. INJ is holding up. Okay. Steve J. The narrative is to get retail out. Don't sell your Bitcoin to the 1%. And you know what? Here's how right Steve is about this. I almost chickened out. Like when I saw MicroStrategy announced his Bitcoin holdings and go down, I'm like, oh my God. Then I'm just like, wait a minute. Now, I even called up my best friend who is not a crypto guy. And I'm like, dude, I don't like this price action. He is not a market guy. He goes, well, I don't think there's anything wrong with it because BlackRock wants it, right? I was like, yeah, you have a point there. Like, if Bitcoin goes to 22, who's down there waiting for it? They all are. And there's the thing that we have not talked about. We have not talked about this. Is that what happens if Bitcoin doesn't go down and these trading desks and these places who all know about this go, you know what? We're not waiting. We're going to buy it right now. We are not going to wait for Gensler to tell us we can have an ETF. We're going to call Mike Novogratz at Galaxy Digital. Mike, give me an offer on a gazillion Bitcoin, and we're just going to start draining it out right now. Right? Seriously, that's how it works. It's OTC, and then, whoever they buy it from has to go into the open market and start covering it. And I'm sure based on the amount, Galaxy Digital is kind of like the Goldman Sachs of crypto, right? They're like this big investment bank where people, they're like a crypto investment bank. So if BlackRock wanted to go into the open market, they're not going to open a Coinbase account and hit the green button. They're going to call Galaxy. What happens if these entities just go, yeah, we're buying. We're buying it right now. Right? Especially, okay, here's a final note. If you watch the first day that you see stocks down, bonds down, and the dollar down, I really haven't seen that yet. We've seen it maybe one day. But if you see stocks down, bonds down, dollar down, right around the 10th of October, and the dollar does not recover the next day, then it could be on in crypto. So summarizing two factoids. One. If you see VIX above 23, there's a problem in stocks. Okay? And that's where you could have the 2987 thing. If you see stocks down, bonds down, dollar down, okay, and the dollar doesn't recover, that's the end of the dollar. Potentially the end of the dollar. Because remember, with all this pressure in the system, if you've understood nothing that I've said, based on what the smartest person in the whole world told me, this gigantic event that's going to occur, the only place it could possibly occur is in the currency market, of which crypto is a part of. EAG launches tomorrow evening. Get in the Gold Retriever or EAG Telegram group and check it out. No charge to get in and chit-chat. We believe in what we are doing, and we have suffered in this bear market, as have we all. Tomorrow, we start the comeback. I'm Bill Noble. We'll see you tomorrow.